Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the movie of What If Naruto Was Reborn as Malenia. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. He had to live. He had promised them he would live. He had sworn to them, no matter the cost. He had to get back back home. Didn't he? The thought twisted like maggots in Naruto's head, the uncertainty gnawing at him so many teeth. That strange urgency persisted, even as his soul twisted in the dark. Wait, his soul. Where was his body? He looked down aghast and found the familiar outline of his shape awaiting him. Yet something was off. He was transparent, an ethereal shade of blue in the void that he could see right through. He felt cold, so very cold. No, don't think about that right now. He was alive. He would live. He had to live. He must live. Something brushed the back of his mind, little more than a wisp. And with it came a voice, barely a whisper. Help. He whirled and found a golden mote of golden light dancing past his eye. It was small, tiny even, barely the size of his palm. There was something wrong with it. He could see streaks of scarlet etching their way across the light, gradually consuming its radiance. Curiosity perked up in him, pushing his dread back if only for a moment. On a whim, he reached out and touched a finger to it. A faint flicker of warmth suffused him. The wisp didn't retreat. On the contrary, it seemed to sense him as much as he did it. The second he touched it, the light dove into his hands. Don't let her take me. I'm tired. So tired. His fingers reflexively curled around it protectively. Let her take you. Red lady. Her could hear the exhaustion in the little one's voice. Chasing me. She sounded young. Very young. An awful thought occurred to him. If he was a soul right now, was this the afterlife? Was he holding a child's soul? All right, don't panic. This is fine. Everything is just fine. It was not. Go on ahead. He gave the child's soul a gentle squeeze, screaming inwardly. I won't let her get you. I'll take care of her. The soul in his hands warbled hopefully, plaintively. Promise. He smiled. Cross my heart. I keep my promises, you know. Think you. Without warning, the little light in his hands burned with new intensity. The eerie red veins crisscrossing its surface burned away and it almost seemed to tremble in his palms. He felt a sudden sharp burst of joy from it, then it shot up through his palms to pierce the black. The dome of darkness shattered. For a moment there was a blessed flash of white clouds and a sprawling blue sky above. The little golden light vanished into it with a flutter of white wings. Then it was gone and the darkness crashed back in, leaving him in the ether once more. You are mine now, child. A sickly sweet voice pervaded his ears. Your body, your soul, your very being. An indistinct figure of red light bearing the vague shape of a winged woman. She had no face, only the vague outline of one, and even that seemed to radiate smug satisfaction as she descended toward him. A faint scent wafted his way, vaguely reminding him of a flower, yet it was too sweet somehow, almost. Rotten. Whomever she was terribly tall, towering over him at nearly 8 feet, maybe more. The very darkness itself seemed to quiver at her presence. Her head tilted, regarding him as one might an amusing pet. Submit. He scoffed. Yeah, no. Her voice peaked in disbelief. I beg your pardon. Did I stutter? He flipped her the bird. In case you haven't noticed, I'm dead. Meaning I have nothing to give you, ergo, PSS off. I shall not. She floated closer. Do you have any idea how long I have been chasing ... Wait. Even speak. Although he couldn't see her face, he could hear the horror in her voice as she looked him up and down, just noticing his appearance for perhaps the first time. You shouldn't be able to speak. Naruto grabbed what he hoped was her wrist and reeled her in. Even touch me. Her voice peaked yet further. Unhand me at once, knave. I am a goddess. You have no right to. Listen you, my name ain't Knave. He smashed his forehead against hers, stunning her. It's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. She made to speak and he summarily snarled her into silence. I killed a goddess once already and I ain't above killing another. Send me back to my body right now or so help me. I cannot, for I had no part in bringing you here. She thrashed and sputtered in his grasp, acting every bit the petulant child. You are not my host. This was not the bargain I was promised. His brow furrowed. Bargain. I was promised a newborn soul, a life to shape and mold to my whims, to give my blessing. She glared at him furiously, trying to free her wrist, to no avail. You are not the one who is yet to be born. You are not Malenia. Where is she? Now it was Naruto's turn to tilt his head. Who? Her soul, you twit. Where are you hiding her? She flailed her free hand at him, trying to search him and finding nothing. When she came up empty, she made a noise of purest pain. She's gone, isn't she? You must have sent her to the hereafter. You've ruined everything. Before his very eyes she crumpled down at his feet, nearly dragging him with her, and burst into tears. The strange sickly sweet scent around her grew even stronger, causing his eyes to water. He released her to ward a hand before his face. She didn't even seem to notice. As he looked on, she tucked her knees into her chest and began to bawl. I had one chance to redeem myself. She pressed her face into her legs and refused to look at him. One. That's all I had. They're all going to laugh at me now. The formless mother, the lady of the stars, the lord of dragons, the twins of ice, the greater will. Even the frenzied flame fared better than me. Her voice peaked into a wail, leaving Naruto feeling quite awkward indeed. He scratched at the back of his head, suddenly unsure of what to say when faced with this now hysterical deity. Sorry. Her head whipped up, eyes blazing. You ruined a millennia's worth of work. That all you have to say for yourself? No. She surged up to her feet, barreled on before he could even think to speak. Don't answer that. I can still salvage this. You. A rose-red finger jabbed into his spectral chest. We must come to an accord quickly, you and I, or both of us shall be ruined. You will be left here, a lost wraith left to prowl the void, and I will be dragged back home, the laughingstock of my kin. Stop poking me and I'll think about it. He looked down, annoyed to find a sizzle of smoke against his chest where she'd jabbed him. And don't do that. It is not so simple. She took her finger away but glowered down at him all the same. That is who I am. I am the goddess of rot. Decay is what I do. I perpetuate the endless cycle of death and rebirth. Ouch. You picked an awful thing to be a goddess of. How kind of you to say. Her voice dripped with venom as she scowled at him. I was not given a choice. I was made this way. All right. He rolled his eyes and floated backward, irked by her outburst. Leash, who put a bee in your bonnet? Who did? Oh, right. He had. I am not a goddess as you understand it. She held up a hand, letting pinkish red light swirl about her fingers. I cannot interfere in mortal affairs so easily as you wish. Any act on my part expends a great deal of power. I can restore you to life, but not in the body you inhabited. Wait, she amended hastily, hands flailing at his thunderous expression. What I can offer you is the same body whose soul you so unwittingly ascended. You will be reborn as the child whose soul you replaced. You will have little strength at first, but in time you will become far powerful than you are now, and possess the full breadth of my might. Does that not sound fair? It sounded like a decent deal. He got to live again. Maybe not in his old body, but one was better than none. His mouth twisted in a grimace. I guess that sounds all right. Sensational. Although, she looked away with a wince. There is a minor complication. The body you will inhabit is not that of a baby boy, but a girl. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Come again. There is no other way. The alternative would mean destroying another child's soul for you to replace. No, we're not doing that. He palmed his face with a sigh. That's cruel and inhumane. I won't do that to someone. I'd rather die. The goddess of rot planted a fist on her hip. Then your choice is clear. Unless you'd prefer to drift in the void for all eternity. He most assuredly would not. At the end of the day he was afraid. Terrified. Really, not of the prospect of being dead, he could get over that, but of being alone, cast adrift in the void with no hope of return, uncertain if he could break out under his own power. He wanted to believe in himself, but that faith had been shaken. What if he didn't break out? What if he wasn't as strong as he thought he was? What if he spent the rest of his unlife here with no one but his own voice for company? He'd go insane. Naruto shook his head to banish that ugly thought. If we do this, we do it on my terms. The goddess of rot sighed. I suppose we don't have much choice, do we? Name them, and I shall do my best to aid you. All right, Naruto, put on your bargaining face. He set his visage in what he hoped was a stern look. Think you can throw in a healing factor? You already said I'll be fast and strong, but I can't have you rotting this new body of mine. I'll have enough problems to deal with as is. I don't want to go losing my abilities. Very well. You shall retain your gifts. What else? He squinted at her. Don't make me short. Already dealt with that once as a kid. A rare laugh burst out of the goddess. You needn't worry about that. You're going to be spectacular. There was also a powerful fox with me, Kurama. He shrugged when she looked baffled. Any chance you could find him? One of my kin probably snapped him up. I dare say he'll show up sooner or later. Her lips pursed. Fine, don't make that face. I shall endeavor to seek out his soul, wherever in the lands between it may reside. Our time runs short. Are you prepared, mortal? This process will exhaust me most thoroughly. This may be your last chance to speak with me for quite some time. She made it sound like he had a choice. What choice was there? It was this or nothing at all. Wait. His eyes widened and he raised a hand. Hold it. She flung up her arms. What is it now? I never got your name. My name. The goddess of rot paused. Truth be told, I never had one. It was always sister this or daughter that. His spiritual shoulders rolled in a shrug. Well, I can't just go calling you goddess all the time. No, I suppose that would grow boring. She touched a finger to her chin, considering. But a name? I've not used one in eons. Aha. I've just a thing. Rose. She smiled at the last. Yes, that fits. You may call me Rose. I had thought to use Bloom or Summer perhaps, but I feel that would be a little too on the nose. There was something about that word. I get the feeling you're making a joke at my expense. Not at all. Her smile grew a little. I'll ask you again. Are you prepared? Ready as I'll ever be. He grit his teeth and gulped anxiously. Do it, as you wish. The goddess of rot leaned down. Her forehead touched his. Close thine eyes and let me in. He did as she asked. Her hand settled on either side of his face. Something warm and soft graced his lips. His mind jolted. Wait a minute, did she just? Darkness rushed in. She's alive. Naruto opened his eyes. Why was everything so dim and big? Reality and realization rushed back in, bringing with it a stinging brightness and terrible noise. The world lurched and he found himself swept up against a woman's breast. Bright golden eyes gazed back at him, framed by golden hair and an exhausted face. There were tears in her gaze. Actual tears. There, you're all right, Malenia, the women holding him crooned. My little petal ... we almost lost you. Naruto certainly didn't feel all right at the moment. Everything was a whirl around him. A long strand of something fell across his eyes. He wrinkled his nose. Red hair. He'd been reborn with a full head of scarlet hair. It tickled his nose, prompting a sneeze. Long, red hair. Just like Mom's. It confused him all the more. Why would he have red hair when his mother Malenia's, not his, was so very clearly a blonde? He looked down, blinked now, blinked strong, patted his face with pudgy hands. Not his face, her face. Right, then, Malenia's father must be around somewhere, unless he was the sort to run out for milk. There he is. He spied a rather pale man with flaming locks lurking at the woman's elbow. You're the reason I have red hair. Such a fearsome scowl. The woman crooned in utter delight. Look, Radagon, she resembles you. The redhead scowled down, his voice a low baritone. There's something odd about her. Naruto froze. No, I'm a perfectly normal baby. Radagon, dear, you're scaring her. I am merely being thorough. The redhead's scowl redoubled. One can never be certain where the outer gods are concerned. Hush, you. Thankfully, the mother disagreed with his statement most vehemently. That's enough, she's your daughter. No need to be paranoid. America, don't you America me, mister. The woman delivered a stinging smack to his arm. This is your child, and she just might be one of your last if you're going to be so suspicious about your own kin. America, hey, was it the woman's name? Good to know. Avoid the big guy at all costs. The woman winced suddenly and heaved a sigh. Naruto looked up at her, baffled by the sudden tension in her. She only smiled and handed him off. Don't fret, little petal. That's just dearest Miquella coming into the world, right on schedule. Here, Radagon, hold your daughter. The STRD didn't look much pleased about that. The sentiment was entirely mutual. He didn't think they would ever get along, the two of them. I will be watching you, child. Naruto glared back as best this new body could. Radagon noticed, of course. Don't give me that look. He'd be doing all that and more in the coming years. Even as a baby girl, this new body had power, strength that far surpassed his old one. Fine, very well, so be it, then. If he couldn't go back to his old life for the time being and he was determined to find a way sooner or later, well, he would just have to make a go of things here for now, wouldn't he? On his terms, not theirs. Being a girl wasn't about to keep him down, no sir. And then another mewling cry reached his ear now. Here's amidst those stubborn thoughts, bringing with it another surprise into the world. Bright eyes widened. A sibling. The goddess of rot hadn't said anything about this. A brother? No, a twin. Always wanted one of those. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. And if anyone laid a hand on Miquella, if they sought to harm him, let them rot. It took a long while for Naruto to grow used to the name Malenia. How strange it was to be a child again, to have a proper childhood indeed. Even 5 years after the fact, Naruto still found himself, his mind remained emphatically male, as always hesitating more than once when someone called him Malenia. There was still that brief moment of confusion, a disconnect, if you would, the brief urge to pivot and argue that such wasn't his name. Try as he might, she wasn't used to being, well, a girl. Sage knew he didn't act like one. No pretty dresses or gowns for his new body. Give him a white tunic and black breeches any day, no matter what anyone might say. He couldn't run in a dress, and running was something he well and truly loved to do, much to the consternation of his new siblings. Let them call him a hellion if they liked. Let the royal court scratch their collective heads over his antics. Let Radagon turn up his nose at his so-called daughter as others whispered behind his back. He didn't care. That said, he felt he made a brave showing of it all the same, better than most would have upon finding themselves move into such a strange second life. It would have been easy to run away once he learned to walk again, but he hadn't. Instead, he'd chosen to stay. Malenia. A voice called to him somewhere in the distance. Sister, where have you gone this time? Miquella was amusing constant in that regard. He wasn't just a reason to stay, but rather a perpetual reminder of, oh hey, I have a brother now. Having a twin made things better. Amusing even. Almost like having a good all-partner in crime for her mischief. Even now the other demigods didn't seem to know what to do with them. That was fine. This was fun and fantastic and free because today they'd get their shadows. That meant a new friend. She was rather looking forward to it. Contrary to what most might believe, Naruto wasn't stupid. Being reborn as Malenia had given him time to contemplate things, to consider between his many and myriad mischiefs. He knew what a shadow was meant to do. They existed solely to slay you if you turned on the greater will. Shows what they knew. Blade was Ranni's so-called shadow, and he was loyal as they came. He'd sooner slay himself than attack her. He meant to have the same relationship with his, and he'd make certain that Miquella was much the same once the time came for his little surprise. But like any child awaiting a gift, even a reborn one, he found himself curious. Indeed, he wondered who he would receive as a partner. He hoped it was a girl. She had absolutely no patience for boys, as Rykard and Radon would happily attest. But that was neither here nor there now, was it? He had an appointment to keep. Landell was a veritable maze of corridors for the uninitiated, twists and turns without end, something he often took great pleasure in when planning a prank, yet today he didn't have time for that sort of thing. He was late, oh so late, for a very important date. There was much merriment to be had, yes, but… movement up ahead. Naruto slowed, not quite stopping, but curiosity stilted his anxiety somewhat. A robed figure stepped out of the hall not 3 yards ahead of him. Their back was turned, cradling something in their hands, quite unaware of him in their headlong rush to get wherever they were going. Oh, was that who he thought it was? Well. An impish smile hit the corner of his mouth and split his pale face. Perhaps a bit of fun could be it after all. Target acquired. Kicking himself upward, she alighted upon the wall and kept running, careful to keep his footsteps soundless. Even after all these years, he'd not forgotten his shinobi training, not a jot. Bare feet patted against polished marble, making not a sound. He was silent. He was shadow. He was stealth. So close now. Close. Closer. Closest. And like the ninja he no longer was, he pounced. Relahaniai. He struck his half-sister's back like an almighty arrow loosed from one of Raidon's bows and bowled her over. Down they went in a tangle of arms and legs, head over heels. The distinctly unladylike yelp that followed was utterly worth it. Less so the litany of curses that flowed forth from the sorceress' lips. Who was he kidding? Definitely worth it. Something caught his eye, a black sliver of steel on the floor, like the shard of a blade or some such. Had she dropped it just now? Curiosity compelled him. Finders keepers. Intrigued, the redhead snatched it up and tucked it into his pouch. Just as well, too, a groan told him Ranni was coming around. Malenia, get off me this instant. Naruto most assuredly did not, if only because he didn't feel like it. Nope, if Ranni had a problem with him, maybe she should take a page from one of her books and leave. Ha, good joke, much funny. A baleful glare was his reward. Sister, get off my back. I think ... not. Ranni made angry Ranni noises, but failed to dislodge him. Really, she was a testament to what this new body of his would be one day, tall and imposing, her pale face framed by a curtain of crimson hair, and a gaze that could cut you in two. She was making a fair effort at that now. Owa, how cute. Such a shame they were related. Despite his recent reincarnation, he had absolutely no interest in boys. None whatsoever. That was some small comfort. It meant he was still himself. Herself. Meh, semantics. ... What do I have to give thee to make you move? A grin bloomed across his face. A few lessons would be nice. Done, she replied just a touch too quickly. A mistake on her part. Now let me up. I wasn't finished. She'd shown weakness and now he was going to milk this moment in her. For all it was worth. I want us to go on walks in the garden again. She huffed angrily. You're getting much too old for that. I'm only 5. Sure, he had plenty of brothers, but only one sister. Was it any wonder he wanted to spend time with her? And speaking of time, I think you should. A large hand closed around him from behind and hoisted him upside down before he could make further demands. And what do we have here? A low gravelly growl greeted him. A little kitten running about the halls. Don't you know there are wolves about? Naruto grinned despite the awkward position, uncaring of the long messy red hair getting into his eyes. At first he thought it was Blade who'd snatched him, but no, the land holding his ankle was much too large, the voice far too deep and their presence all too towering. Even so, he still could have broken free at any time, used a shadow clone, and drove a racing into their face. But they didn't know that, which was also fun in its own way. Instead, he smiled, just for them. Hello, Uncle Malekith. A clawed finger poked his still non-existent chest, drawing a laugh from him. What did I tell you about tormenting your siblings? He giggled despite himself, swaying in place. Not to. The old wolf sighed. And yet here you are. Yup. Idly, he noticed Ranni had gone terribly still behind them. He wondered why. There was no danger here. None at all. In another lifetime Mother would have kept her shadow far away from the capital, away from herself and everyone else. But he wasn't having that now, was he? Big families were the best families and the more the merrier. Malekith didn't seem to notice the tension, and if he did, he concealed it. Off with you now, little niece, lest you be late. Your shadow awaits. Naruto kicked his way free and ran off with a merry cackle, blissfully unaware of the crisis he'd just averted. As such, he didn't see the confrontation that followed. In hindsight, perhaps that was for the best. You try my patience, Lunar Princess ... Do not attempt to take destined death from me again. There were times when Miquella feared for his twin. Malenia was ... wild. Energetic to be sure, but she didn't act at all the way an Empyrean should. Not like him, not like Godwin, not even Ranni. From her earliest moments she had been a bane to the Golden Order, fiery and fierce, not at all a composed demigod. She railed against her curse and fought it at every turn. She just fought and fought. She loved to fight and kick up trouble like nothing else. He loved his twin, make no mistake, but she was everything he was not, wild and rambunctious, ever eager to be somewhere. Today was no different. Scarce had he found her again than she was running off again, forcing him to jog after her just to keep up. Come on, we're going to be late. She ran past him with a wild grin, scarlet hair lofting in the breeze behind her. As he looked on, she vaulted away, kicked off a wall and launched herself into the air, all but rocketing ahead of him. Gods be good, but he pitied her future husband. Assuming she ever took one. She didn't seem all that inclined toward boys. Girls, on the other hand ... Well, he wasn't one to judge. Nicola, come on. He stifled a small smile. Coming, sister, as his sister willed, as always. She'd ever been the sort to lead. They were the youngest of the demigods, mere children compared to true titans that were their siblings, General Radon, Praetor Rykard, Lunar Princess Rani, and of course Godwyn the Golden. They were the outliers of course, for they were Empyrean. Today was their 5th name day, the day they would receive their shadows. Malenia seemed quite excited about that, despite her condition. Did she not understand the ramifications of such a thing? Their shadows were simply another shackle, another way to better bind them to the greater will. Silent blades, poised to strike them down at the first sign of treachery. And for what? The Golden Order could not cure their curses. Of that much he was certain. Arena, Malenia chattered at a serving girl ahead of them. There you are. Sorry, no time to talk. We're going to be late. Niquella sighed and considered warning the poor girl just whom she'd made friends with, then thought better of it. She'd realize what Malenia was eventually, just how wild she was. Everyone did, sooner or later. He could only pray their soon-to-be shadows understood that. They had their work cut out for them. Light, blessed be the light. So this was what it felt like. To think, she'd almost forgotten such a sensation. Her body had been cold and silent in the dark for some time now, unable to see, unable to move, but able to feel everything. It had been such a lonely existence after the fire faded. She had lamented her choice, her mistake, her foolishness. And why wouldn't she? Such was her curse, her fate, the last living soul at the end of her world. She'd prayed for a release, for some small semblance of escape, for someone, anyone, to take her away from it all. Imagine her surprise when a higher power answered. She was swept away from her dead world to another, here, in the lands between. The greater will had been brutally precise in their contract. She was to serve and obey. So long as she did so, she would not be cast back into the dark. And she was content to serve, really, she was. In a sense her new role was not unlike her first. She would attend to one greater than she and steer them toward their destiny. Little had changed. She knew how she must appear to the outside world. The appealing blonde woman clad in dark, burnt robes, a silver mask clamped over her blind eyes. Harmless, insignificant, a woman who no longer remembered her name. What a pitiful wretch she was. And then she saw her. The woman who once kept the fading embers of a fire, saw whom she was to serve as she was brought before her, shepherded by the 2 fingers. She glimpsed her in her second sight, a little red-headed girl that almost seemed to glow from within. Perhaps it wasn't so much vision as sensation, she could feel her presence. She burned, shone like the sun in her mind's eye as no other could. Truly she was a beacon among beacons. Merely standing in her presence filled her with warmth. So, this was the one, then. This was it. Her second chance. She had to do this right. I am your shadow, my lady Malenia. The young woman bowed before her charge. A pleasure to meet you. Use me for whatever you see fit. The girl tilted her head, regarding her curiously. Do you have a name? I do not, my lady. If she did, she could not recall. Then I'll give you one. I beg your pardon. She who once kept the fire wasn't prepared for said girl's bright, sunny smile, nor her response. Ino. The girl moved a finger at her. That's who you remind me of. So I'll be calling you Ino. Hope you don't mind. She didn't even give her a chance to respond, instead taking her by the hands and pumping her arms up and down, shaking them happily. We're going to be the best of friends. Oh dear. Oh, very dear, indeed. This wasn't what she expected at all. Why the embers ... What had she gotten herself into this time? Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed, just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.